Kadosh, good morning. I wanted to share with you a beautiful idea that I saw in this week's Parashah. We all know that in this week's Parashah, it speaks about the death of Sarah Imenu, and even though she deceased and she departed from this world, there was a new tzaddiket that came into the world. Her name was Rivka. And that's why they always say, Uva Hashemesh v'zerach Hashemesh, meaning that there's always going to be a replacement. That even though it's true, though sometimes we lose such a tzaddiket, but there was another one in this place. And we see it in the Torah. Vayvi'eh Yitzchak, it says in chapter 24, Vayvi'eh Yitzchak ha'oela sara imo. Yitzchak Avinu brings, right, Rivka to the tent of Sarah's mother. Vayikach et Rivka v'tihilo leisha. He took her to become a wife, which means he actually did kiddushin. That's why they speak about the entire concept of getting married in this week's parasha. Vayetehilo leisha was for him as a wife. Vayaveh, he loved her. Vayinachem Yitzchak acharei imo. He was consoled after the death of his mother. What does Rashi say there on pasuk Samech Zayin, on this pasuk? Ha'oleh sara imo, vayvi'eh ha'oleh v'arei sara imo. What does that mean? Ha'oleh, right? What does it mean? The tent of Sarah's mother. What does that mean? It's not the tent of Sarah. Sarah passed away. It says no. She became like Sarah imo. She became like Sarah, his mother. What does that mean? Shekol zman she Sarah kayemet, as long as Sarah imenu was alive, haya ner daluk, merev Shabbat, the candle was lit every Friday to the next Friday. It was lit the entire time. Yeah, bracha metzuya ba'isa. There was always bracha in the food. There was always bracha. Where? In the dough. When she was doing a Parashat Challah. The anan kashur la'oel. There was always the clouds of glory on top of the tent. Umishemeta, once she passed away, pasku, it stopped. U'shebat Rivka chazru. So when Rivka came back, right, when Rivka came to the tent, it actually returned. Listen to this. Siftei Chachamim comes and he explains, why were these three miracles? One more time. Miracle number one, we had the ner. The ner, the candle was lit from Erev Shabbat to Erev Shabbat. Number two, Beracha and the Isa. Number three, the Ohel on top. We had the cloud on top of the Ohel. The clouds on top of the tent. Why these three? Says the Siftei Chachamim, these three are the mitzvot of the woman. What does it mean, the mitzvot of the woman? The bracha ba'isa, the bracha in the isa, in the dough, is because of Parashat Challah. She has the mitzvah to do, to make chalot and to separate challah. It's called Parashat Challah. You separate the challah. That was the bracha in the isa. Number two, the candle which was lit from one Erev Shabbat to Erev Shabbat, because of Hadlakat Shabbat. And number three, the anan, the cloud on top of the tent, was because of the shmirah and tarat mishpacha on Nidah. When a woman is going to watch over on Nidah, she has what's called the Shekhinah with her. And therefore, because of this, every Beit Yehudi, every Jewish house must have these three ingredients. They must have these three components. As long as they have Nidah, Challah, Hadlakat ner, Chenna, Chana, whichever one that you want to call it, that's the acronym, right? Challah, Nidah, Hadlakat ner, that's Chana or Chenna. That's why we do a Chenna. That's the basis of all of a Jewish home. But listen to this, because it doesn't stop here. And this is something incredible. Listen carefully. There's a minhag by Ashkenazim. I'm sure you've heard of this minhag, that they add a candle for every single child. So every single child, they add another candle. Why? Why? It's not brought down in Shulchan Aruch, in the Mishnah Berurah. Why do they have such a minhag? So listen to this. Rav Tavraski comes and he explains beautifully. And he says like this. Every child comes with different challenges. Some children might give you problems in school, in academics, others in behavior, others in school, they're incredible, and at home, they're terrible. Others in home, they're incredible, and at school, they misbehave, right? They're mischievous. Sometimes it's in emotional, behavioral issues, sometimes sibling rivalry, but every single child has their challenges. And then what happens is, and not only every single child, it goes with the age. Maybe at the beginning, when they were very young, they were breaking everything, never eating. All of a sudden, now they eat. So now there's no problem of eating. They grew up a little bit, but now they're always making problems. fighting with the brothers and sisters, doing that. They said, and every single age is their problems as well. All of a sudden, at the end of the week, the mother's already tired. And what does she do? She comes and she lights a candle. What's she lighting a candle for? For every child individually. To remind herself to look at the light, look at the candle, look at the light that this child brings into our lives. Look how beautiful it is that it's bringing into our lives. And therefore she stops and she says, 1 second, look, I'm doing this for him. I want to pray for him. I want for every single child. So the first fundamental in the Jewish home is that we have to have patience, that we have to be sentimental towards our children. And that's how we remind ourselves about that through Hadlakat Nirot. I think it's a beautiful message. Number 2, what's the second one? Parashat Challah. What is a Parashat Challah? You come every single time that you're going to prepare for yourselves chalot, you take a piece and you give it to the Kohen. Nowadays, we don't do that. Nowadays, we separate it. We don't know who are true Kohanim, not Kohanim. So what do? We burn it. What was the message behind that? The second fundamental in the Jewish home is that no matter what, whenever we're going to come and enjoy ourselves, make sure that other people that they cannot enjoy because they don't have that enjoyment, make sure that they also get a portion. Make sure that you share with them as well, that they should also be happy. They should also share in that. That's the second fundamental in Judaism, in a Jewish home. Number 3, Taharat HaMishpacha. Listen to this. We say in the Beracha of Sheva Berachot, Sameach Tesamach Re'im Ahuvim. What does that mean? We're so happy. It's a double happiness. Sameach Tesamach Re'im Ahuvim. Re'im are friends. Your fellow Jew, your friend. Ahuvim are loved ones, like lovebirds. What are we saying exactly? So the third one is that the Jewish home is built upon the harmony in Shalom Bayit between the husband and the wife. And that you could only get it as friends and as lovers. What does that mean? Part of the month, we're friends. And that's the time when it's actually, and there's another part of the month, which is actually we're lovers. One without another is not enough for a marriage. You need both for a marriage, which means that the recipe is to join them both together. And therefore, that is the secret to what it is in marriage. The time of Ahuvim, the time that when you're loved, is only going to be strengthened if you're friends with her beforehand. If the woman comes and she feels that at the time when we're going to say not neglected, but she's pushed away or she's off limits, a person's not her friend, her husband's not her friend. So when she's on limits, she's not going to want her husband to be close to her, because then she feels like a utensil. She feels that she's being used only for her body. So therefore, during the time when the woman is going to be off limits, that's when the time that you have to actually pay attention. You're her friend. You're here for everything. You just can't touch, but other than that, everything, you're there. It's not that you just don't pay attention and then all of a sudden, once it comes, right, that she's pure, all of a sudden that's it. So therefore, and that's the same thing with the Zman of the Reut. Everything, the friendship only starts because of that. And therefore, they're both needed for a critical part of the marriage. And that's why we have the 3 fundamentals of Judaism. The 3 fundamentals of a Jewish home are actually these 3 things that we have. When we come and we start Parashat Haye Sara, and that's what I started the shiur by saying, we speak about Kiddushin. What is Kiddushin? We marry a woman, and the minhag nowadays is that we know that the halacha was you could get married to a woman with money or anything, even with something which a value of money. Nowadays, the minhag was with Al-Pia Kabbalah, is with a ring, right? And very few places where the Rama actually brings us down that you take a ring and you get married with a ring. What do you say? Hareat mekudeshet li betabat zo kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. You are betrothed to me. You are designated to me. There's many different words of what does it mean, mekudeshet exactly. Sanctified to me, right? With this ring, kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. Like the religion, like the concept of Moshe and Israel. Why do we say that here? Imagine right now by every single mitzvah, you're going to read the Megillah, you're going to light the Hanukkah candles, and you're going to say, I'm doing this mitzvah Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. Why is it this the only place where we come and we say Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael? Like Moshe in Israel, like the laws of Moshe in Israel. What's going on? And the rabbis come and they say something incredible. Listen to this. The rabbis say, this is Rav Yaakov's son. He comes and he says like this. The relationship between Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael was a bumpy ride. It was a bumpy relationship. It wasn't straight. There were always the ups and downs. There was always the times where you had rebellions, whether it's Tatan Vaviram, whether it's going to be Korach, whether it's going to be many different times that they came and they wanted to rebel against Moshe. There's nothing in Mitzrayim, there wasn't enough graves. You know how many times they rebelled against Moshe Rabbeinu? But Moshe Rabbeinu was 100% loyal and devoted to his nation. Ad kedekach, so much that when they were going to be destroyed, Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu, don't destroy them. Because if you're going to destroy them, destroy me. Which means that he comes and he tells them, I am 100% committed. I am 100% responsible and devoted with all the love to the end. There's nothing what to talk about. When a man gets married to a woman, that's what he does. He comes to the woman and he says, you're betrothed to me. Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael means that don't always think that marriage is rosy, that it's always perfect. There's always going to be ups and downs in marriage. There's always going to be ups and downs in the relationship. But you should know one thing. I'm just like Moshe to Israel. I'm 100% committed. I'm 100% devoted with all the love, and I'm here for you. That's what the message of a man is when he comes to get married. I think this is a very beautiful message, and I think it's something incredible because not only are we speaking about the foundations of the Jewish home, we have it. And we finish with a beautiful story that was actually brought down. This is all from the Smichat Chaver program, that he comes and he says something incredible. Listen to this. What happened once is that there was a woman that she heard from her student something incredible. Usually what happens is that the way that the mikvaot work, in whether it's in Israel or in other places as well, is that the women go to the mikveh, there's a waiting room. And in the waiting room, they wait there until they get their turn, and then they go into other rooms which they prepare themselves in order to dip. Yes, that's where they prepare themselves for the preparations. Once they finish, so then they come and they go home. Why are you going to wait around? Yeah, there was one woman, when she finished, instead of going home, she went back to the waiting room, and she comes and she starts putting on nail polish. And she was very precise and very this and very that. So one of the women was looking and she's thinking, okay, listen, okay. After 10 minutes, she comes and she says, listen, excuse me, sorry, but do you think your husband really cares if you're going to start putting on nail polish now or not? Usually he's already excited. It's like a kala coming back. What's so much there? What? So she comes and she tells her, you should know one thing. This is not for my husband. She said, what? So what are you doing then? She said, this is for my daughter. The woman's now looking like puzzled. What does that mean? And she explains. She says, my daughter has been working for months as a babysitter. And she saved up all her money. And what she did is that it was my birthday 2 nights ago. And as a present for my birthday, she took me to do a manicure. So I went and we did the manicure and everything. I already knew that I had to go 2 nights later, right, to become pure. I had to go 2 nights later. Now I'm going to have to take it off. So she comes and she says, imagine right now I go home and my daughter doesn't understand all these things. And I'm going to go home and my daughter's going to see, 1 second, she doesn't have her nails. What happened? She's going to be so upset. She's going to feel so hurt. How could it be what? My mother didn't like it? What happened exactly? She's not going to understand. So he says, in order to save that from my daughter, I went and I bought I looked and I bought the exact same nail polish. I did everything. And now that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to perfect it. So therefore she'll never tell what I just did. It says this in essence is what we spoke about, the first fundamental, being savlani, being patient with our children and being sentimental towards our children. She didn't want to hurt her daughter's feeling that she went and she gave her a present and she's coming and this is what she's actually doing. And therefore it was so important for her right? To come and to make sure that she's putting it on. Why? Because this, in essence, is what the rabbis were actually teaching us. I just hope we're able to internalize this message, Bezrat Hashem, and continue growing in Torah, in Yat Shamayim, Bezrat Hashem. Called to Batzlacha.